So good evening, everybody, and welcome to our information session this evening on our UBC Microcertificate in Cloud Transformation and Technology Infrastructure Strategy. As always, we have an agenda, and just to let everybody know, as you heard, this session is being recorded. We will post it to our YouTube channel tomorrow very soon. So if you have to leave early, or for people who are unable to attend, it will be available on our YouTube channel to view very soon. In a moment, I'll make our introductions and I'll go over the program highlights, the upcoming schedule, and we have some poll questions for you tonight just to get a set to help guide the discussion. Then I'll pass it over to our instructors to speak to the curriculum of the program, followed by Q&A, where we invite you to ask our instructors questions, concluding with next steps on how to register. And so my name is Aidan Cleary. I'm coordinator with UBC Extended Learning, and I'm delighted to be joined tonight by our two instructors. So Ricardo Trujillo is a PhD candidate and a polymath entrepreneur and passionate educator whose 20-year career span intersects technology, communications, and education. Ricardo has co-founded several software as a service companies that span digital media content distribution, marketing automation, language assessment, disaster resilience assessment, and currently immersive environments for training and education. He has led ideation, planning, and product management, and has collaborated with operations, marketing, software architects, and technical teams to bring transformative cloud-native platforms to market. He has also worked as a consultant for several private and public organizations internationally. Ricardo holds a Bachelor of Communications and a Master's of Strategic Marketing. Joining Ricardo is Lawrence McDaniel, who is a freelance full-stack web developer and business analyst, as well as an angel investor, entrepreneur, and mentor. He has worked as a freelance technology consultant since 1999 and has advised dozens of startups, as well as international banks, hedge funds, and real estate investment funds. Lawrence has years of experience designing high availability, horizontally scalable, cloud-based infrastructure environments, and 20 years experience designing transactional database systems. His areas of expertise include financial modeling and forecasting systems, analytics, machine learning, big data, web, mobile, database technology, and Amazon Web Services cloud infrastructure. He has significant experience with classic back-end stacks and front-end frameworks, including Django, React, Angular, and WordPress. He also works extensively with the OpenEdX learning management system, as does Ricardo. And Lawrence holds a Bachelor of Science from the University of North Texas and majors in computer science and mathematics and minors in physics and English. These are short bios. If for a full bio, we invite you to visit our website. And now for those program highlights. So this is a part-time 100% online program that is instructor supported with a weekly 1.5-hour live online session. Each week, students are reviewing lecture videos and content. They do self-assessment quizzes and assignments and contribute to discussion boards where they can connect with other students. So the expectation is that students are spending between 5 to 7 hours, as well as that 1.5-hour online per week. There are assessments and there are weekly activities such as knowledge checks, discussion posts, and case study assignments, which are based on real life scenarios. There is a passing grade of 70%. So by the end of this program, students will be able to make critical decisions around cloud infrastructure, financial costs, the ability to scale, information security, availability of the right technical expertise, risk management, compliance, and regulatory implications. You should be able to pitch your cloud transformation high-level strategy to leadership and stakeholders. You will understand core concepts around cloud versus on-site technologies, focusing on servers, networks, storage, and application patterns. Understand at a high level how to design a secure operating environment for your organization and know what to consider when choosing and deploying cloud technology infrastructure. Learn strategies to bridge the needs of product and technical stakeholders in your organization. And finally, design a cloud adoption strategy and technology transformation roadmap. Our upcoming schedule, our first course, Cloud Transformation Strategy, begins February 6th, concludes 4 weeks later on March 10th, followed a couple of weeks later with our second course, Cloud Technology Infrastructure Strategy, which begins on March 27th and concludes on April 21st. And while each course does function as a standalone and can be taken in any order, if you are planning on participating in the full microcertificate, we do recommend that you take the course in sequence. And now we have a couple of polls, again, these are questions to understand who is here tonight. Now, I will ask you to add your responses in the Q&A, and basically we're asking, what industry do you work in? Just help us understand who is here tonight. Just want to ask, Ricardo, are you seeing the, oh, I see people are responding. Thank you. And then your title would be, your title in your company. Just leave that there for a moment. People respond. Thank you. And if you see question 3, just ignore us. That will come up later. So thank you. We have people from Translate, a depot coordinator, manager information services, from master team lead. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to end that poll. And now I'll hand it over to Ricardo to speak to the first course of Cloud Transformation Strategy. Thank you, Ricardo.
Thank you, Eileen. Well, everybody, welcome. It's actually very exciting to be here towards our second iteration of this certificate and these courses. We had a very successful first installment a few months ago, and particularly well in the course that I'm going to be talking about, which is the Cloud Transformation Strategy, which is course 1. It's a course mostly focused on the business side of the cloud transformation process. And we have actually participants from the different levels and from different actually backgrounds. We have people from the business side that wanted to learn more about the technology part of it. And we also have people from the more technology-oriented sides, but that never had the opportunity before to actually deal with the business side of things, the kind of processes that they need to actually take in consideration to actually go through going through a transformation strategy process. So if we can go to the next slide, Eileen. Okay, perfect. So basically, as Eileen mentioned, we have 4 weeks in the course, and there's 6 modules. The week 1 and week 2 have 2 modules each, and week 3 and week 4 is just 1. As I was saying, the course is actually based on the idea that everybody's journey is different. I mean, the cloud transformation journey, as the industry is calling it, it varies for everybody. It's not a process or where you can actually take what another company has done and apply it into yours, because the situation is different in itself. So what we do here is we start with envisioning accelerated outcomes. Basically, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to achieve with a cloud transformation? And we'll go a little more in depth into each week in a moment. This is just high level at this point. But from there, we go towards aligning foundational capabilities, meaning once we know what we want to do and understand what are the requirements for the businesses, okay, how can we actually build a strategy that aligns all the capabilities and all the necessities of the organization as a whole? Because this goes from the bottom to the top. It's not just one department or another. Well, maybe in some really big organizations, sometimes that happens. Week 3, then we focus on the next step, which is launching initiatives with incremental value. Basically, okay, we do an analysis, we start looking at alignment, and now we start actually looking at, okay, what is the stages of adoption? How can we start launching our transformation initiatives in a way that is escalated? So we can control it, basically. And by week 4, then we look at, okay, now that we started looking at these incremental implementations and we had reached a few successes, then we look at the scale. But the idea behind all this is that along with me, you're going to be actually building what we call a playbook as we go. So you're going to be building a playbook that you're going to then adopt into your own scenarios. It's not just theoretical about I give you a lot of definitions and then just learn it. No, this is really hands-on. We talk about your particular necessities, basically, because again, we have people from all these different backgrounds. So the conversation actually is always really encouraging and it helps everybody there. Now, just to go a little more in depth into each of the weeks, Eileen, if we can move to the next. Okay, so on week 1, as I mentioned, we have 2 modules. The first one is the cloud transformation journey. And this one is just to make sure that we are all talking about the same topics. So we look at the fundamentals. So for example, the traditional service models like software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. Traditional deployment models, the private cloud, public cloud, hybrid, multi-cloud, etc. So basically, we just make sure that everybody is in sync. So this is a good it's a good point where we all actually recognize, okay, well, now we understand what we're going to be dealing with. And when we look a little about the history of the cloud adoption, it's very brief, it's very straightforward. Just to make sure that everybody is in sync. And we look at this at the cloud transformation value chain too. Now, that's a very short module. It's just to start, just to warm the engines, as they say, and then we jump into understanding your business structure. So what is that? It's basically, there's no way that we can actually do a cloud transformation if we don't know what our business really is. What is the purpose of our business? What is the main goal of our business? And this could be from a very small a company to really big organizations. And the decision to go into the cloud transformation it's something to consider because it's a big process. It's not easy. I mean, more companies fail than those that succeed. Why? Because there's usually very little planning involved. So the idea of these models to start is we're going to start working with some frameworks accepted and adopted through the industry. But we're not going to be married to just one. So I'm going to be actually leading you in showing you different frameworks so you can start understanding them and adopting what you think is of value for you. So we go into the transformation prerequisites. Basically, okay, what do we need to know about our company? So and our people, our organization in general, so we can really start planning the transformation. Then we jump we start working on an action plan, which includes motivations, business outcomes, financial considerations, technical considerations. And I'll give you a few models, nothing to be very confusing or very complicated, just to help you to actually guide your path. and you're going to be adopting what is more valuable for you. After that, then we go into the week 2, which is identifying business perspectives. And again, this is based on a framework in particular. This is the Amazon Cloud Adoption Framework, which the idea is just to organize our research, our findings, which is, and then we organize it to identifying the business perspective, the people perspective, governance, platform, security, and operations. And then once we actually get a good idea about those perspectives, then we jump into how do we align our teams and capabilities just to achieve the desired business outcomes. Obviously, in 1 week, it's impossible to do everything, but the idea is that you're going to come out of this week, in particular, you're going to start having your playbook, knowing what you need to do. It's going to be impossible that you do all the analysis in these 4 weeks. In reality, that at the end of the 4 weeks, you're not going to have the full playbook and all your questions answered, but you're going to have a really good functional playbook that you can actually implement. So if we move into the next slides. Okay, now we see week 3. This is a little more dense, but that's why it's only one module. It's transforming foundational capabilities into a cloud-ready state. So again, this is the cloud adoption journey. So first, we understood what cloud computing was about and understanding the particularities about the cloud transformation. Then understanding our company, our organization, the people involved, our technologies. And then it's how can we actually use that information that we have to start actually building business cases, so we can start actually implementing our first iterations of that cloud transformation. Because it's never recommended that you decide, okay, I'm going to do a cloud transformation, and then you go full throttle. I mean, no, you need to actually go step by step. And so we look at the cloud adoption, we look at approaches, cloud rationalization. As I mentioned, we start building business cases for each of these ideas of these cloud transformation initiatives that we identified, so we can actually start implementing in an escalated way. Then we supplement with all that information our business case, and there's a lot of lessons that we're going to be learning from the field. I'm going to be telling you a lot of stories, good and bad stories of my experience, and stories of other case stories that are part of this course. And then in week 4 is, okay, now ideally we have our playbook almost ready, and it's now about, okay, how can we scale the work that we have done so we can actually really contemplate the implementation of a full organizational transformation across the organization, right? It's all about the strategy. So it's about enabling the strategy across the organization. We talk about different strategies that have been implemented across the past 10 years, like the cloud first strategy, cloud smart strategy. What are the differences? What is best? What is more convenient in what case? Then we talk about implementing the cloud governance, which is key, the cloud governance framework, which is key for any strategy. And then we turn it into a lean plan documentation, basically. So the course has once a week, as Eileen mentioned, it has 1 hour and a half session live, where we review what the course was about. I mean, what we saw during the week. And there's a lot of conversation and discussion. That's what that is about. Everybody was really, really happy in the previous iteration of the course. And we got really good comments about it. So I'm really excited to actually repeat the experience. Now that we have ourselves, actually have the chance to actually improve on the experience of the previous course. So I'm really looking forward to meet you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. And Lawrence, I invite you to introduce our course 2, Cloud Technology Infrastructure Strategy, please.
Fantastic. And first, thanks to everyone for taking time out on your Wednesday evening to learn more about these courses. I was the instructor for course 2 last semester. It was a lot of fun, interesting. I think everyone got a lot out of it. And I'm thrilled to be back this semester to do this again. The second course, it effectively picks up where course 1 leaves off. So course 1, it helps you to frame what you're attempting to achieve through a transformation from on-premise computing to the cloud. And course 2, in turn, is about how to make that happen. In a very general sense, the advent of cloud computing opened a lot of doorways in terms of the way that very fundamental, benign things can be accomplished. And there's a simple and common idea that's really behind that, and so that I don't have to talk entirely in the abstract. But when you're working with computer systems that are housed on premise, then you need human capital with expertise for all of those systems. So for example, if you have some kind of a computer system, and as part of that computer system includes a database that's an SQL database, then the IT management of that organization, it's incumbent on them to ensure that there's a person in the IT staff who understands SQL, and then more importantly, the technical skill sets that are involved in keeping an SQL server functioning and healthy and up and running. When you move that same computer system to the cloud, all of a sudden, there's these interesting options simply because the line that you draw between what is your responsibility and what is the cloud provider's responsibility, that line is a range spectrum. And it's a free market, and there's different providers, and all of them are experimenting with different places to place the stake in the ground to see what's the most valuable to the customers. And so what I mean by that is that you could take that SQL server and you could reconstruct it yourself using cloud infrastructure, and that's a scenario. On the opposite end of the spectrum, that's the type of thing that Microsoft and Google Compute and Amazon and DigitalOcean, all of them have a managed SQL service where they're responsible for 100% of everything, except for the actual data that's on the database itself. But so they effectively proxy for that expertise that would have been the responsibility of the IT department in the organization. And so that's just using that one technology as an example. You can see how there's all different kinds of solutions that involve the cloud provider taking varying levels of responsibility, and then you taking the rest. And there's cost-benefit trade-offs. Which one makes sense is very much a function of your organization and that platform and what your skill sets are and where you think you've gained a competitive edge. And so, effectively, the many factors that Ricardo helped you frame in course 1, we're going to take all those factors and apply them in this kind of way to try to make smart decisions, given that we have lots of choices available to us for how we handle compute and storage and security and user management and so on. There's all these different things that are being managed in the cloud. What we want to do is take course 1 and take what we learned in terms of how to frame these objectives and strategies and apply them across all the different categories of things that exist in the cloud. All right, so that's the big picture. In week 1, we're going to do something that's pretty interesting. Hopefully you'll find this particularly valuable. In week 1, you are going to be tasked with scoping out a compute platform that's going to exist in the cloud. And so if you're considering this course because that is a real thing in your professional life that you're going to be responsible for, then this is a great opportunity for you to sketch out how that might work. You can take that real world objective that you have and apply it to course 2. And that's going to be the nature of your homework and the assigned work that you're going to turn into me. It's going to be framed around that project that you decide on. In week 2, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of start, I guess, what I would think of as the bottom of a conceptual stack for your chosen project. And we're going to take a deep dive on each of the major categories in week 2, beginning with the network itself and just how the binary ones and zeros are moving around inside of the cloud. And what are the factors that are important? What choices do we have at our disposal? And how do we want to put that together to accomplish goals such as it being secure, the software running efficiently, and it being flexible for our future needs? There's 3 basic categories. And as the course moves on, we're basically going to start there and just work our way up the stack. So week 3, we're doing that same type of exercise, but talking about the many different types of data storage technology that exist in the cloud. And then, given that we've established those 2 layers to our stack, in week 4, we can start to think more about practical applications. So we can refer back to your chosen project. So let me just fill in the blanks for a second. Let's suppose that your chosen project is an e-commerce site, and you actually have some fairly advanced thoughts about what kind of e-commerce site and what the particular types of software are going to be. And maybe you've seen one that you're familiar with, and you want to get as close to that as possible. Week 4 is where the rubber's going to meet the road on that conceptual project, where we're going to really start filling in the blanks and framing how that application, looking at the different options for how it can and should run in the cloud in your case, given your particular situation. Aideen, can you move into the detailed slides now? So similar to Ricardo's course, this is a 4-week course where we're doing a pretty deep dive on specific topics week by week. There's 2 modules per week, same as Ricardo's course. In the first week, just kind of peeling back the onion skin a little bit about what this means for us. This is our first look at what's available to us from the principal cloud providers. Keep in mind, this course is fundamentally, it's provider agnostic. And so there's nothing that we're going to talk about in this course that's specific to one provider versus another. Furthermore, I'm unbiased, and so I in a real world sense, do not have, I'm not opinionated about, for example, Amazon versus DigitalOcean or Microsoft Azure. There's very practical reasons on your side as a potential consumer of the services for choosing one over another, but it almost never has to do with performance or cost, because it's cloud and it's hyper competitive, and it is exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, for cloud providers to differentiate themselves on the basis of those 2 factors. So there's other reasons. A simple example would be Microsoft Azure. If you're an organization that's already Microsoft centric, then it's a very logical choice to at least have a bias towards moving your on-premise infrastructure to Microsoft Azure, simply because that's the ecosystem that your organization already understands. And so there's probably going to be some kind of tangible and intangible benefits to you just kind of taking the path of least resistance, for example. So in week 1, we're going to take a look at where course 1 left off, and then just frame basic concepts for us to start to frame out inside of a cloud environment what it is in a tactical sense that we're going to try to achieve. And then our second module in that same week is really the how how we're going to make that happen. We're going to talk about a concept called mechanical sympathy, which in a few words really is the process by which you can go through to become to develop an authoritative opinion on the specific technologies that are available to you in the cloud. In week 2, things are going to get pretty specific. In week 2, we're designing our network. And so this is going to be, I think, the first opportunity in course 2 where we're going to start to leverage some genuine cloud vocabulary and vernacular. So starting with concepts like CIDR and the differences between, well, IPv4 and v6, like what are they? What's the difference and why do you even need to be made aware of them? How do CIDRs play into that? What's their role in designing a good, efficient network? And the goal is not to make you a network administrator, but it's to make you conversant on enough of these topics to make you a smart consumer when you are genuinely running point on the deployment of software services into the cloud. You just need a basic rudimentary understanding well enough to be able to read through and make smart choices that are being presented to you. We'll look at different ways that we can accomplish performance objectives and security objectives using things such as firewall rules and CIDR IP address ranges play a role in both of those things. We can look at cases that are not all or nothing. So hybrid cloud technologies where not everything makes it into the cloud. There's still there's still something beyond desktop computers that are still on premise, and there's lots of reasons for that to be a true statement in a permanent sense. And so how do you resolve that? How do you bridge having bits and pieces of your IT infrastructure in a data center physically in your confines, and then those need to efficiently communicate back and forth to the cloud? Like, how do you do that in such a way that you don't have concerns about the data being breached or performance problems or it becoming unreliable because of things? It's just more complicated than it was. And why would you even embark on that? Because it seems like you're taking something that worked fine and making it a lot more complicated than it was before. So we'll take a close look at that, and we can make up our own minds about what types of situations would that be smart and pragmatic and a viable thing to do. Aideen, would you mind moving us to the next slide, please? Thank you. Week 3 is it's particularly big because data storage is a huge part of what's available to you in the cloud. And if we said the cloud was conceived in, I'm going to say 2006, it was created, it was invented by AWS in 2006, and they launched a cloud storage strategy. And that started the journey that leads us to where we are today. And so since then, since 2006, an awful lot has changed. And the people who make storage solutions have continued on their path of innovation. Some of that makes it on premise, and a whole bunch of it makes it into data centers and packaged up into products for you and me to consume as cloud consumers. And so we have a huge range of options that are available to us. It's easy to spend a ton of money on storage. Storage is inherently a complex topic because there's many factors that we're trying to solve for. There's the cost of storage capacity, its speed, how safe is it, how many different types of people are using it, where does it physically need to propagate to, and on and on. And so when we get into it, you'll quickly see that, like, whoa, this gets complicated fast. There's variants of storage. To store video, you do one way. To store transactional data, there's a series of categories of other choices. And the needs for data continue to change. These days, machine learning and artificial intelligence are kind of the vanguard. And the advent of those technologies has presented new challenges with respect to data, and that pieces of software need to kind of work through staggeringly large pools of data that in many cases are dynamic. And so they're kind of in motion as it's happening. And that's a tricky thing to work with. And so creates needs for very unique kinds of data storage. Also storage, these days achieves a size where moving it around or mutating it can be extraordinarily complex and expensive. And so you have to kind of think about these things. So we're going to touch on all these topics and leave you with a good practical understanding of what's available, what types of storage are you inclined to run across on common business and large organizational complex computer systems. All right, and then in our last week, with all of that foundation behind us, it's going to get us to the point where we can really start to look at ourselves as cloud architects. And so we're going to talk about multi-tier architecture, most importantly, 3-tier, which is data application layer and presentation layer. And so those 3 layers are they're permanently concrete in the world of the internet. And the reason for that is that the browser is a UI, and the browser is one basket of technology and a set of considerations. The business logic has evolved into quite specific kinds of choices, things such as the traditional LAMP stack, which is based on PHP code. It's the oldest automation language that you run across in the cloud. It's what platforms like WordPress and Drupal are written on. Newer platforms use things such as Ruby with Ruby on Rails as a framework, Python with Django as a framework, Node with React.js as a framework, and increasingly the entire internet kind of falls into these silos of these different flavors of technologies. And we're going to be able to look at these and kind of fit them in a mosaic and understand where different brands of technology fit inside of that diagram, and how we as architects can make smart choices and develop a good practical understanding of, this technology belongs with this one. They don't separate. You don't mix this one with that one. When you see this, you always see that. These are the types of concepts that I am kinetically working on a daily basis as a freelancer inside of this world. And then finally, wrap up course 2, we're going to be looking at how you take your hopefully successful project and meet demand by scaling it. And so what we're immediately going to learn about in that module is that when more customers come to, or more users come to the solution that you're providing, it's not simply a matter of placing bigger servers behind your website. It's a nice thought, but it's wildly more complex than that. And so we're going to take a look at how real world platforms such as Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and so on, like how do they have a single domain, receive a stream of requests that's in the hundreds of millions to billions? How do they, what is on the other side of that makes that even physically possible? And interestingly, what they use is also what you'll use when your project becomes real world. It's the technologies that I work with on a day-to-day basis. And so those big Fortune 100 companies, there's nothing that's happening inside of them in the world of cloud computing that's not available to you as well as a smart cloud consumer. That's pretty amazing. The best way that I can concrete that idea for you is that the website Amazon.com, its technology provider is Amazon Web Services, and that's where Amazon Web Services came from. It made sense managerially to separate those two, and that worked quite successfully internally at Amazon. And at a certain point, Amazon Web Services as an organizational unit had achieved such operational excellence that they decided to start to try to sell some of that compute capacity outside of the confines of Amazon.com. And so none of that has ever changed. And so today that still is, Amazon.com runs exclusively on what's available inside of AWS. And the key concept there is that there's not a single thing in the stack of Amazon.com that's not available to us as customers, as AWS account holders. So that's pretty amazing. You know what I mean? That at least in a technical sense, if you had the wherewithal, you could duplicate the Amazon.com software, because all of those tools are being made available to us as consumers. So that's pretty cool. And so in this last module on week 4, we're gonna kind of take that idea and make it real by going layer by layer through how scaling works, and how you take your application and make it available to growing, kind of ebbing and flowing pools of users on a real-time basis. So that's Cloud 2. I hope you find that interesting, and I would love to see you this spring, and I will do everything I can to make it a successful experience for you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Lawrence, for that in-depth explanation. I'm going to launch polls. We've got a couple of questions regarding which course you're interested in and when you hope to take. We'd appreciate if you could participate in the poll for just one moment. I'll just let it sit there. So we have, are you interested in just course 1, course 2, or both? And then when do you hope to take it? Our upcoming courses in winter 2023, or are you planning on taking it later? We don't have our dates after winter 2023, but we hope to have them soon. I'll just leave that up for just one couple of more moments. See, questions are coming in. I'm going to invite our attendees to ask questions to our instructors now. I see they're coming in right now. I'll just, okay, I'll end that poll right now. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Our Q&A, I see the first question. I can answer part of it, and then I'll hand it over to Ricardo. And if it's any different
Sure.
in your course, Lawrence, if you could jump in. So the first question is, I understand that the weekly class time commitment is 1.5 hours per week. That is the live session. What is the schedule evenings? Is there reading, homework that we're assigned in addition to the lecture? So the evenings are Wednesdays from 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. And in both course 1 and course 2. And then I'll hand it over to Ricardo to speak to readings and homework that are assigned.
Thank you, Aileen. Yes, well, basically, each week has its own content. It's mostly video-based, but there's some complementary readings on each week, but you are not forced to go to those readings. But there is an assignment that you have basically 1 week to actually deliver. But the assignment is basically the implementation. At least in course 1 is implementation of the frameworks as we start building it. You start building your own playbook based on a case that you select. That it could be your own case. It could be a case that you created a company, a fictitious company, or an existing company, but that you're not part of that company, but you want to use it as an example. Based on that, then you start building or applying what we start looking into during the course. So it's not extremely time consuming. It's just the idea is that you start actually processing and applying some of the ideas and the concepts that we start actually discussing and talking about during the course.
Thank you, Ricardo. Lawrence, anything different on your side for course 2?
It follows precisely what Ricardo just described. I want to emphasize that the assigned material, the product that you'll deliver to me in each case will be written prose, narrative format, and as opposed to, for example, a functioning piece of software running in the cloud. And so to fill in the gaps between one and the other, keep it in mind that these courses are really to provide you with the toolkits of theory that you need to be successful in working with the cloud. And so that's what you're going to be graded and held accountable for, is how well do you understand that theory. Cloud is a tangible thing. And what I did last semester was different clients of mine volunteered to allow me to do show and tell for different kinds of technology for how they use storage strategies and scaling strategies. I support some pretty large platforms. And so anything that exists inside of this course, I have a plethora of functioning examples that we can refer to in the live video sessions. And so that's really interesting because it gives you this opportunity to go behind the scenes on fairly large cloud-based platforms and observe. It's kind of like a field trip. You know, you get to observe how they're working, and you're able to ask me questions on the fly and kind of an ask me anything format. And so that's the only extra things I would add.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Lawrence.
just to clarify or add to the course one, at the beginning of the course, I mean, you're going to select a company that you're going to be using to actually develop these assignments. And the idea is that that same example, you're going to be actually implementing it every week. So by the end, you're going to have a full framework basically implemented with that company. It's not like every week is something different. We're talking about different companies.
Right, thank you. I'm going to answer two quick questions here regarding, first one is regarding the average class size. So we've just had one offering, so it's kind of hard to say what the average class size is, yeah. But the average class size was 20 in the most recent offering. And then will we share the PowerPoint after this presentation? So what we can advise, anyone who registered for this session will receive an email tomorrow with a link to the recording, which has this presentation. Ricardo, can I pass this question over to you about, are there any curated learning materials that will be shared as part of the course?
Yes, well, course one in particular, yes, there's a set of content that has been developed. And you have access to that. Aside that, once you sign into the course, you have, I think, access forever to the actual modules and lessons. And you also have access to the live sessions that are actually recorded and posted right after the class. So it's a full set of tools that you can use for your learning, for your practice. And aside from that, there's, as I mentioned, there's some selected additional readings or complementary readings and links that we also share for those that want to go more in depth into different aspects.
Right, and I know it's the same between the two courses. So, so Lawrence, can I ask? Can I throw this question at you? The next question is: either course useful for developers and software engineers, and if so, how?
Yeah, extremely. I'm a developer and software engineer. That's my DNA. And over time, I would say, as you kind of think to the trajectory of that career path, there's an enormous gray zone between software and what you're doing as an engineer, and how that manifests in deployment. And that the cause of that is cloud computing. If I was to share my screen with you right this second, there's a notion of Terraform code. And so that's code, it's infrastructure as code. That's the way that I work with large platforms. And where the software stops and the hardware starts, that really is very unclear on these platforms. And so in course 2, you're getting kind of a survey on the large categories where that's happening, and you get to take a look at why. A cleanest example I could give to you is, just right off the top of my head, is that if you're a software engineer and you're doing lots of work with Python, and there's lots of examples of companies such as Airbnb that are like very large platforms that are Python based, but Python is a classically very slow piece. It's a very slow programming language. They've obviously dealt with that. Airbnb's not slow. And the way that that's happening is a fusion of a very deep understanding of Python, how it works, and caching technology. So Redis and very clever Redis infrastructure stacks and Redis clusters. So there's all these different ways to work with technology. That's just one that resolve that problem, and then make it such that software engineering techniques applied to Python work fine in all manner of different environments. That's a practical kind of thing that you would understand coming out of course 2.
Yeah, and if I can add to that regarding course 1, it definitely, yes. I mean, actually, the majority of the people that participated in the previous iteration of the course were actually developers. These were people that actually in their organizations, very successful developers. But however, it was, for most of them, it was the first time that they were dealing with the business side of things, because it's not only development and programming. I mean, you need to actually have all these considerations about you having a business case, an action plan, how to build it, how to framework. So everybody actually found it really, really valuable. And in my background, I mean, for in the past 5-6 companies that I've actually co-founded, I haven't only been a co-founder, I have been actually a product manager. So I've been actually working really close with software engineers, software architects, and so I can speak their language and I can understand their needs. So the course was actually very successful in bridging those two aspects that sometimes you find in opposition sometimes, or not marching at the same speed, where you have actually development and the business side of our sales marketing. So we talk a lot about, as I mentioned before, about the experiences that I have had in the past product managing different cloud implementations and different kind of cloud products that we've done in the past. So yeah, I would say that it's developers can actually find it really valuable.
Okay, and we have a question. I wrote you, Lawrence. Is the course solely based on AWS, or are we going to learn both MS Azure and AWS?
No, again, course 2 is provider agnostic. So all of the topics that we're going to cover in course 2 are classes of products and solutions that are available from a variety of providers. And there's, for the level of detail that we're going to approach, there's not going to be any differentiation that I would be conversant on from one provider to the next. I will make an effort to expose you to more than one provider. However, just keep in mind that that is a function of which clients of mine are willing to make their cloud environments available in a classroom setting. And so they're just the lay of the land, market segmentation, market share in cloud is such that around 2 out of 3 customers are Amazon, and then that remaining 1/3 is it's pretty splintered. And it's what I'm trying to say is Google and Azure are pretty small by comparison, and so I mostly have clients whose infrastructure runs in Amazon, but I'll do my best, to try to bring some non-AWS set of infrastructure into the classroom, just so that it can be seen. You can see with your own eyes what the difference is.
Yeah, and in course 1 also, you're going to be exposed to more than one of the cloud adoption plans. I mean, definitely we may reference a lot to the AWS, AFC, but we also actually include a lot of elements from Azure. We in the past we also use pieces of Oracle. The thing is that they are all very similar, but at the same time they all have strengths and weaknesses. So what we do in course 1 is, as you get exposed to that, you start actually identifying what works better for you. But that doesn't mean that some of the concepts or elements that for example we reference from Azure's cloud adoption plan, you cannot implement it anywhere else. Remember, it's about creating your own playbook, your own framework, so you can actually adapt to your situation. So we take a little from everybody.
Okay, and just to answer the question regarding UBC Online Library Access is not available for this course. Coding skills. Are there any coding skills required for the program? And if so, what level is sufficient? What languages are you using?
No,
Ricardo, or sorry, good.
oh, go ahead, Ricardo. I apologize.
No, sorry. I was just going to say no. There's no need, at least in course 1. No.
And likewise in course 2. Last semester I did not show any source code, and it's really not relevant. I think it's very helpful to concretely see the web consoles that are provided by AWS, Azure, GCC, and DigitalOcean. Those are the 4 largest. They're quite similar, and I'll comment that the things that I do with code with regards to cloud infrastructure, all of those things can be done through the web consoles that those providers make available. There's other reasons why that's not the route that I personally take. But I'm very familiar with them, and so it works out that there's really no place for code in course 2.
Okay, Ricardo, do we provide an account for AWS or Azure for us to design cloud architecture?
No, but I mean, as we show and provide access to the tools, it's very easy for them to actually create just their own account. And most of the tools, at least the ones that we look at in course 1, don't require an account.
Okay.
You can use them. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm just going to jump to a question regarding office hours for some one-on-one help with discussions on assignments and course materials. So of course there's a 1.5-hour live session, but I guess the student is asking if they run into trouble during maybe submitting an assignment, or they've got a question, what typically are students doing, Ricardo, in your course? How are they accessing your attention for assistance?
Yeah, definitely. And it happened in the previous iteration. The easiest ways, I mean, everybody has access to my email. I have a dedicated email, a dedicated UBC email for this course, and it posts anytime that you're working on that, and I'll read it, and then we can set, if necessary, we can set a time. But at least in the previous course, we actually solve everything through email. And or we broke the topic of into the discussion for the week for everybody's benefit. Yeah.
Okay. And our extended learning office hours are Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And email us. Students can email us also. We're coming close to the end, and I'll just do 2 more questions before I close with information on how to register for any enrollee here, in any of our attendees here. The questions are coming. I'll just see if anybody's voting up any questions to make sure. If there are questions here that you would like Ricardo and Lawrence to answer, please tick on that little thumbs up there to make sure that the question is answered. Do we have to enroll for the course again, or this registration is sufficient? No, you do need to enroll for the course. And again, I'm going to close with a QR code that will bring you right to the registration page. Okay, this is a good question. Will it make you job ready?
That's pretty vague.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, definitely, what I can say is that from the experience of the previous courses, that it definitely is going to give you a path. It's going to clear a lot of the noise that exists around. If you start Googling for solutions on processes or playbooks, I think it's going to give you direction based on what you are. The situation that you're facing in particular, or if you're planning into going into a cloud transformation process, it definitely is going to clear. I think it's going to give you a path, a map of the journey that you're going to go through, and that you can actually be able to to satisfy the needs of the top managers, the owners of the companies that want to actually to go to the process. You're going to be able to create a plan around it and implement it.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And I'll conclude with this question that that's been voted on. Lawrence, is this course, is it the same level of the AWS Architect?
Not at all. And I'll clarify the difference. This is a survey course, and our objective is to make you knowledgeable on what cloud providers offer and why, and how you would make use of those. And that's a fairly high level topic. I think Rodrigo Fritas' question that's above it is a good example of the kind of thing that you would be in a more knowledgeable position to take a position in a debate, such as should we or should we not do such and such with microservices. You'll know what microservices are, you'll understand what's behind them. And again, you could frame a point of view one way or the other. On the other hand, the AWS Architect examination is 100% tactical. You need to be able to do these things in an AWS account. And so what I mean is, in a practical sense, you need to be able to create a managed Kubernetes cluster. You need to understand what's inside of that. You need to understand which specific AWS services are being corralled to make that happen. So your preparation is similar but different. And if you achieved an AWS Architect certification, the nature of work that you would do would be similar but different to what we're talking about in this course, which is, again, I would say the question that Rodrigo presented is more of a bullseye for the type of thing that you would be well armed to take on. And so the person who could sit in a conference room and frame a meaningful and knowledgeable debate with a C-level person is a different person than, for example, a person who you would hire to create a stack that microservices are going to run on. And that's what an AWS architect would do.
That's super. Thank you so much. So I did jump ahead to the next slide to give people time to take a photograph of this QR code. It'll bring you directly to our website where you can register for one course, two courses, or the full micro certificate. And that leaves it tonight to say thank you. Thank you, Ricardo and Lawrence, to you both for giving up your time to come here tonight and explain this program in detail. I really appreciate it. And then finally, thank you to our attendees tonight and for their great questions. And we do hope that it was helpful. And so good night, everybody. Stay safe, and we hope to see you in our program. Bye-bye.